here we are. We're waiting in line, get our tickets scanned, and then we can go in. This is exciting stuff. Can't wait to see what's inside. Welcome to Jurassic Quest. Literally, the first thing you see is a display of a Triceratops smack dab in the middle of the entrance. We honestly didn't know where to start except here. Like, we were kind of drawn to this particular statue. It just looks really cool, and it's absolutely massive too. But of course, we weren't just here to see Triceratops. They also had life-size Eoraptor statues, which look incredibly tiny. It's kind of adorable, really. And this is also where I saw a new dinosaur I wasn't aware of, which was Lophostropheus, which I originally thought was a Dilophosaurus at some point, but I guess there would be reason for my confusion because look at it. It looks exactly like one. One thing that really caught me off guard was how surprisingly accurate some of these dinosaur statues actually were. I was expecting something like what we would see in Dinosaur World in Florida, but the attention to detail here is absolutely impeccable. And of course, no real tour of this place would be complete without a look at the T-Rex. Oh my god, this thing is absolutely gigantic. The proportions of these animals really does put into perspective how small you really are in terms of scale. I mean, this is absolutely insane. Obviously, not everything was ludicrously massive. I mean, we did have the Coelophysis that is shown right here with tiny diddly arms that I thought were broken originally. And of course, the Domastasuchus, the Heterodontosaurus, which is down there at the bottom, which is then followed by a fully feathered Guanlong, which I gotta say is rocking that bright green color. And to my delighted surprise, a Herrerasaurus, of all things. You know, I always thought like these things were small, but looking at the size of this, it's actually pretty big. This display was then followed up by the Alvarezsaurus, a type of raptor, which I'm not going to pronounce, and of course, a life-size animatronic Carnotaurus. Honestly, the camera does no justice on the scale of this thing. I mean, this thing was big, but this guy was a tiddler to what was in store next. And that giant in question was the Spinosaurus, and I knew I immediately wanted to check it out to see how up-to-date it was. It is walking on its knuckles, but I think that's more of a balancing thing than it is like an accuracy thing. The sail looks about right, it has the short stubby legs, and the most important detail of all that I was looking for was the sail on its fin, which is now accurate. And it's pretty cool to see that they added it in, that they've actually took the time to remodel their Spinosaurus to incorporate that part in the design. It's absolutely awesome. Funnily enough, the dinosaur next to it happened to be an Ouranosaurus, and as you can clearly see, unfortunately, this statue suffers from a broken fin. Hopefully that gets fixed. This, of course, brings us to the gigantic Apatosaurus that they have here, and oh my god, this thing was huge. I think it's the longest statue they have around here, and it's pretty cool, but I have one problem with this statue, and that's the face. That looks like the face of a demented soul crying for help. Like, oh. The Bipaosaurus, albeit cool, looks very suspiciously like the one that we see in the aisle. This was then followed by Sebastian's favorite carnivore shown here, the Ceratosaurus. Not as big as I thought it would be, but that nose horn is definitely a bit too small. And then there were these Ajkaceratops, which until now I did not know existed. Bumping up that weight scale followed the Allura Titan, which is absolutely massive, as the name suggests, but it wouldn't be as big as the Hadrosaurus we see later. Yet, funnily enough, we downsized again to the Oviraptor, which they gave it feathers, and they showed it actually protecting the nest rather than raid it. And of course, right next to that was, funnily enough, again, the Changosaurus. Kinda glad we're seeing some obscure dinosaurs in this attraction. However, what baffled me next was this Deinonychus. Here we have an accurate Deinonychus with feathers and proper contour feathers and wings that even go to the proper finger. And then we have the information board, which shows it being scaly like in the movies. I mean, if you're gonna have like a feathered dinosaur on display, you might as well have the silhouette feathered as well, right? Shifting back to bigger dinosaurs, this Baryonyx, man, was giant. It was probably even bigger than the Carnotaurus, if I remember correctly. And again, I had to say, The scale of these dinosaurs is impressive. These are life-size animatronics, and you can see from Sebastian just standing there that he is dwarfed by this thing. It's massive! Unlike this tiny little Hypsilophodon, so cute. And I guess it shouldn't be surprised that the dinosaur that should follow it is the Iguanodon, which, again, really big. I kind of imagined it to be bigger, but in all honesty, this thing looks pretty cool. And then hiding in the corner was, of course, a life-size Utahraptor. I'm gonna go ahead and assume that the eyes are shut because this is supposed to be an animatronic, or maybe it was an original puppet. But as you can see, it is covered in feathers. However, the wings are supposed to extend to the second finger and not the wrist. But otherwise, this is a pretty solid looking Utahraptor. With that part of the attraction down, it was now time to see the Stegosaurus. It looks pretty cool. Love the plates and love the long neck and the tail. I just don't really like the eyes of this. But look at the little baba, it's so cute. With that out of the way, we then turn to look at some pterosaurs and whatever this little abomination was. What's in this face? Jokes aside, the pterosaurs were actually pretty decent looking. Their wings were folded back instead of on the sides like they are in the movies. They had pycnofiber, but the most impressive sight of all was this massive Quetzalcoatlus animatronic. Honestly, I'd known how big these things are because they're like a giraffe, but didn't appreciate it until now. So you could probably imagine how I felt when I saw the Edmontosaurus. Oh my god. Like, as I said before, this Hadrosaur was big. Like, I'm pretty sure the statue might be even bigger than the T-Rex that we saw earlier. Directly behind this mammoth of a dinosaur was a very, very familiar looking Styracosaurus, because the colors on this are very reminiscent, if not almost exactly like the one we see from Beast of the Mesozoic. I like the colors and all, but I can't tell if Beast of the Mesozoic copied this or if Jurassic Quest copied this. And of course, we have a couple more ceratopsians here, like the Cosmoceratops over there on the right, and the Titanceratops over there. And of course, a little baba. Continuing on, we then found the Albertosaurus and Parasaurolophus statues, with both of them actually being animatronic. I was kind of baffled at how small the Parasaurolophus really was. Either Jurassic World oversized theirs, or this one's actually undersized. I don't know, but this Parasaurolophus actually looks pretty cool. I really like the colors in this one. Next up was the Dromaeosaurus, naturally, and surprisingly, the Anzu, which, again, another obscure genus that doesn't really get depicted a lot, so I'd like to see that it's getting some love here. Finally, an attraction that actually shows small feathered velociraptors. Again, the feathers should extend to the second finger instead of the wrist, but they still look pretty cool. Except the eyes, those are scary. This is probably the only design I didn't care for. It was the Ornithomimus, and it looks very emu-like, but the one thing that throws me off is like the plume of feathers on its crest. It looks so uncanny. Eyeballs! Now, I am not a scientist. I'm not going to pretend I am, but I'm pretty sure that Dracorex is no longer a valid genus or has been put into question whether or not it's a juvenile Pachycephalosaurus. Either way, I really like the design of both of them. It's good to see my favorite herbivore finally get some love in these attractions. Within the same enclosure was, of course, an Ankylosaurus, which looks pretty cool. And of course, Sebastian tries to poke its eyeballs. And here we have like the side view of the animal, and of course, the signature club tail that it is known for. It's at this point of the tour when dinosaurs become fewer in number, and we're now starting to see sea animals like this ammonite, the ichthyosaurs in the background, and we also are treated to a very accurate plesiosaur, complete with a tail fluke. And just right next door was Elasmosaurus, of all things, with the signature long neck that took up over half its body, the robust body, the huge flippers, and for some reason, the lack of a tail fluke. I'm not sure what happened there. I was very surprised to see that they had a Protostegoterodon. I'm assuming this is an Archelon based on the size of it, but that's all I really gotta go off by. And right next to it was, I think, my favorite marine reptile, which was the Tylosaurus, and it looks fantastic. Look at the size of this bugger. It's lifeless! And then came what I consider my favorite part of the entire tour, and that was the fossil showcase. Here we have a cast replica skull of a Prognathodon. Again, a very obscure mosasaur, and a very obscure prehistoric animal in general. And of course, they also had megalodon teeth, they had shells, they had trilobites, ammonites, they had a stegosaurus thagomizer, the skulls of Pterodostro, Pachycephalosaurus, Teratophonius, Minotaurus, which again, another new dinosaur. I'm learning a little bit every day. The claw of a Therizinosaurus, a Triceratops scapula, but none of these hold a candle to the Stan T-Rex skull replica that they had on display. It is absolutely beautiful to see one of these, and I even got to see life-size T-Rex teeth for the first time outside of my collection. And for the occasion, I actually brought my own T-Rex tooth, which one of the staff actually saw me pull out.
Ooh, what kind of fossil do you have?
I have a T-Rex tooth fragment. This inevitably led to a life-size megalodon, and the effect looks pretty cool. It doesn't look like a great white shark exactly, which is accurate, but those eyes really freak me out even now. With the tour pretty much concluded, we decided that we wanted to wait for the raptor training session. So while we did that, we looked around and saw all the activities they had. First up, the souvenir shop was awesome. Not a whole lot of merch, but they do have some pretty cool plushies and t-shirts and dinosaurs and even like 3D dinosaur puzzles you can have. And for the kids, there are dinosaurs you can ride, there's an excavation dig, there's all kinds of fun stuff for kids to do, and apparently 20-plus-year-old adults.
Look, Ma, we're doing arts and crafts. I'm gonna go ahead and cut mine up.
There was even one dinosaur I had such a hard time trying to figure out what it was, originally thinking it was a Yutyrannus, until eventually I learned that it was actually a Seops, of all things. Who would have guessed? Then finally, it came time for the Raptor training show. Honestly, this kind of brought the inner child in me seeing like a life-size Utahraptor, even though, yeah, it is a guy in the suit, you can see the legs. But this was pretty cool to see overall. I even got to pet the raptor on the head. Unfortunately, I didn't record that because I'm stupid. But it did apparently whap a lot of people with its tail. Overall, I thought the Jurassic Quest trip was an amazing experience for families or for yourself if you ever want to go. Obviously, I don't know how much longer they'll be in Virginia, but if you ever find themselves coming to your town, I highly suggest you actually check it out. There's a lot to offer for families everywhere. It's a really fun trip, and it can teach a lot of people about dinosaurs. That was a fun experience. I highly recommend you come here if Jurassic Quest is in your town. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe today, hit that bell so you don't miss anything new. And until next time, this is Tyranno Senpai signing off.